Hello and welcome to StratNews Global. This is Nayanima Basu and you are watching The Gist. I have with me today a very special guest. He is Mr. Josel Ignacio. He is the ambassador of Philippines to India. And we are going to understand from him the recent historic visit that President of Philippines, Mr. Marcos, had in India, the kind of defense partnership we are going to look at, the Indo-Pacific partnership, and a lot more. Welcome to the Gist, Ambassador, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nayanima, and hello to you, and greetings also to the audience of StratNews Global.
Thank you. So, if I can ask you, Ambassador, the first question, and that is because the president had been very vocal about it. It was a historic visit, and the visit happened after 7 years. And India and Philippines elevated the relationship to strategic partnership. But really, the defining moment of the visit, I would say, is the BrahMos deal, and him telling very clearly is the fact that Philippines is interested to go for procurement of more BrahMos missiles from India. Now, while that is of course a very good news from Indian perspective, what is it and how is it going to define the strategic partnership in the future?
Well, thank you for that question. Well, I think just to also put on record that for us, the most defining moment and feature of this visit by the president was the elevation of our relationship into a strategic partnership. A full-fledged strategic partnership by which India joined, a pantheon of just, I think, 5 countries for now for the Philippines, because we have been very considered and deliberate in our approach as to who we are strategic partners with, based on certain criteria: common cause, mutual trust, and a host of others. But on the BrahMos deal, of course, the Philippines is, quite delighted and even proud that we were the first country to which India has sold the BrahMos missiles, and that deliveries have been going smoothly. As I have said before in previous interviews, BrahMos technology affords the Philippines credible deterrence, credible defense, and it is completely in sync with our archipelagic defense, comprehensive archipelagic defense concept. Now, as regards future procurements or purchases of the BrahMos, as the president has said, everything's on the table. Ultimately, the decision will be with our Defense Department. But I think overall, what it shows is the kind of mutual trust that has been developing between the Philippines and India in the area of defense and security, and also the Philippines' recognition of India as a credible and as a provider of quality defense and in fact indigenously produced and made defense equipment. So I think there lies the significance of the relationship now with respect to BrahMos.
Right. And yes, I mean, of course, the decision finally, it will take a lot of time to go for the second order. But with the first batch of BrahMos missiles that you already procured from India, how has that been helpful for Philippines? If you can elaborate that for us.
Of course, as the president had said in one of his interviews, we see the BrahMos as providing us a good measure of credible defense, credible deterrence. Of course, we would not want a situation where you actually have to put that in use. But I think
but these are deterrents.
These are deterrents. That's what we're saying. The first batch is all part of what we call the third horizon of our defense modernization.
Right.
Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's about building comprehensive archipelagic defense. The Philippines being an archipelago of 7,600 plus islands, which requires a different kind of different dogma, different philosophy, different strategic approach to defending the country. Now, the BrahMos, the initial acquisitions, those are shore-based missiles, and we feel that for our current needs and the current realities, these are in sync with our objectives. Future orders we see as beefing up what we are acquiring, the kind of capabilities we are acquiring now. So it's really about developing even more credible deterrence.
Right. And also to understand, in terms of defense industrial partnership is also something that the president spoke about, and that's part of the joint statement too. But I believe, and you can shed some light on it, there had been some discussions on having Philippines procuring submarines from India. I believe there was a plan that, you were procuring them from Russia or Japan. Are you looking at, in that segment as well?
Well, as I have said, everything's on the table. The Philippines, for a long time, we have been, a treaty ally of the U.S. We have procured from the U.S. and Japan, countries where we have not just a strong, story of common cause, but also a history of actual, defense procurement, including Japan for some years now. But India has sort of joined this firmament. So the submarines is part of the comprehensive archipelagic defense that I have been talking about. Right now, I mean, I think it's a very very initial stages with our defense department. I think all that it indicates, the kind of menu of items that have been raised or sort of mentioned during the visit. I think just highlights the kind of the comprehensive approach to acquiring capabilities that the Philippines wants to see in the years to come in order to secure our very big archipelago and our waters.
Right. Also, while the visit was going on, and it was quite, as I said, a historic visit with so many deliverables. Our navies, the Philippines Navy and Indian Navy, they were doing a joint military drill in the South China Sea, because every country in the Indo-Pacific, has a stake there, right? But then that, of course, has upset China, and China called India as this third country and all that. How do you see that? Is this strategic partnership, as what China is saying, only targeted towards China because you're also a U.S. Treaty ally?
Certainly not. These activities we conduct with our partners, including India, for broader objectives, for broader ends. Both India and the Philippines, we are maritime nations with centuries old tradition of that, and now we are two countries that espouse free, inclusive, and open waterways, free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific, in fact. And so there are larger ends to what we're doing. Undertaking joint what we call maritime cooperative activities, MCA, or like to in plain speak would be naval drills. Assists the development of interoperability, between our naval forces, understanding, sharing of best practices. Again, for any contingency, it doesn't have to be looking at only at the potential for conflict, but it serves ends such as, for instance, humanitarian assistance, disaster relief. There are so many aspects by which that are served by engaging in maritime cooperative activities and pursuing interoperability between two forces.
Mhm. As I said, Philippines is a treaty ally of the United States, but you're also looking for strategic partnerships with Australia, Japan, and India, and they are kind of part of the Quad as well, in a separate format, though. But then, is this? I mean, the reason why Philippines is looking at this kind of strategic partnership, is it to build a kind of counterbalance against China, but not really depending on the U.S. in totality, but within this region?
Well, it's not explicitly a counterbalance to a particular country. As the president has said, we are looking at building partnerships. I believe the president even used the word coalitions with like-minded countries that share our similar ends and views with the Philippines in the global commons, in the maritime sphere, especially the Indo-Pacific, being a large part of which is crucial waterways for commerce, for our own security. And yeah, so the Philippines, I think there's a sort of alignment between the Philippines and India. The India is multi-vector, multi-aligned foreign policy. The president has been very vocal about the Philippines being a friend to all, enemy to none. And our foreign policy is independent, meaning to say that even as we pursue and shore up our existing alliances, we are pretty much open to forging partnerships with countries that share similar views and purposes with us, and that is how we are. That is why we are sort of pursuing strategic partnerships with those countries we feel that are most at sync with our objectives, our lines of thinking. And as I have said at the beginning of this interview, we have a very considered approach to this. We don't just enter into strategic partnerships with any country, and that is why India is only the fifth of in this roster of strategic partners, of which of course the U.S. is an ally, and so in that sense it's also a strategic partner, except that it's a treaty ally of ours.
But the point is, this is really, and China had been kind of public about it, that they're very much upset. And well, India is kind of again sort of rebooting ties with China. The Chinese foreign minister recently visited, Prime Minister might be going to China for the SEO summit. But taking all this into account, how is it the Philippines is kind of viewing this? And the fact that, just another question to it, for the past 2-3 years, you've been facing a lot of tensions with China, as we are facing with China on the border. You're facing in the South China Sea. So does that bring these two countries closer, or otherwise also do you think bilaterally we have many agenda apart from this?
The Philippines and India.
And India, yes.
I mean, certainly we pursue our relationship bilaterally, our strategic partnership now on its own merits. No, security wise, it's not all about maritime disputes, it's about keeping the maritime commons and the passageways, the sea lines of communication open. There's trade, and our common cause and views about shoring up the multilateral trading system, and even revamping it such that it's facilitative of trade. It supports the supply chain resilience and these things. So there are many other reasons underpinning the growing relations between the Philippines and India. Certainly, the fact that the relationship is more about, despite what we have gained over the past 75 years, it remains still more largely about potential than actually realized accomplishment. So there's a lot of potential to build on. So we pursue that relationship on its own merits. Of course, for our respective relationships with China, there are pain points, if I may put it that way. There are differences, but I believe, as Prime Minister EAM Dr. Jai Shankar said, in his meeting with Minister Wang Yi just recently, these differences need not and should not erupt into conflict and dispute. So both of us, we have our own problems. Even the Philippines, our difficulties with China. We do not want it to be the sole, driver, the sole, lens, from which we view our partnership with China. There's a much broader planes of collaboration. And in fact, China remains an important partner for the Philippines in trade, in people-to-people relationship, in tourism, and many other aspects.
Well, Prime Minister Modi has also spoken about the ASEAN centrality in Indo-Pacific, right? And India-ASEAN has a kind of good trading relationship. But do you think, considering the fact that now, with the coming in of President Trump, there is this tariff war that's going on. India is negotiating a deal separately with the US. But do you think this is time for India to also have separate bilateral trading arrangements with key ASEAN countries like yourself?
I believe that, with the situation that we have now, what's happening is there are the existing multilateral trading frameworks. But these do not necessarily preclude countries from pursuing, to their respective advantage or as their interests may dictate, bilateral arrangements. Which is why, the Philippines and India, even as we have ITIGA and the ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, ASEAN India Free Trade Agreement, we are also poised to launch our negotiations on our respective preferential trade agreement. And I think most scholars say that the situation that we see now in terms of protectionism, or the application of heightened application of tariffs, punitive even sometimes. There many scholars warn against countries retaliating against each other, because the solution is really to forge ahead with what is there, to build on what is there multilaterally, and also to explore how this can be complemented or even strengthened by bilateral arrangements. So I think there's a value to India and the Philippines even pursuing these kind of bilateral trading arrangements.
Interesting, you said that, Ambassador. So, are we going to see any kind of free trade agreement? How will that be different from a preferential trade agreement? If you can let our viewers know.
Well, the preferential trade agreement would be, I think, would be narrower and more specific in scope. But I think the advantage with the preferential trade agreement, with the bilateral one, is you can target particular areas of complementarity and advantage, and that is what I think for the moment that is what will serve best the Philippines and India. We are still at the phase where trade is not as the trading profile is not as high. Dare I say, not as mature as what India has with other countries, just because for decades, for instance, the Philippines has prioritized other trading partners, other export markets. But with this visit, what we see is the two countries turning our sights towards each other more, paying attention more to what we can gain from each other, what our mutual interests are. And I'm happy that that has sort of seeped into the trading and the commercial relationship. And again, I spoke earlier about potential, and that's where in trade there's a huge space to explore, because our basket of goods that we trade right now is still pretty much narrow, and we can broaden this basket.
But which all segments are you really looking at when it comes to trade? Because I remember about 10, 12 years back when the FTA was being signed and negotiated, Philippines had some reservations about Indian IT sector. How do you see today that is developing, and which all sectors is Philippines interested as far as India is concerned?
I think for the Philippines, the trading profile has been very strong with India. For instance, in terms of minerals, in terms of pharmaceuticals, even meat products, agricultural products. But I think we want to bring in more value added items onto this plate, so to speak. The Philippines, for about half a century now, we have been a very strong player for instance, in the semiconductor sphere. No, we're very strong in the packaging and assembly and testing, downstream especially.
Okay.
And India, for instance, now has this semiconductor India chip project, and we're looking at openings where this kind of complementarity and maybe being part of the supply chain, for higher value added electronics, where we can come in and find spaces for both of us to contribute to each other. So electronics, motor vehicles, higher value added products, that's part of the areas that we are exploring now.
Well, I understand, Ambassador, it's a very busy time for you. But my last question to you will be, since now that the bilateral relationship has been elevated to strategic partnership, how is it that you see this ties, this relationship evolving in the next, let's say, 5-7 years window? I won't say 10 years because the world changes very fast. Now with two wars raging in, we never know what happens. But how do you see the outlook for these two countries?
Well, as I said, there's a lot of unexplored potential. So we have inaugurated this relationship at a time when the relationship is intensifying and there's much room, much space for growth. On the political and security sphere, we see each other intensifying our dialogues on multiple fronts. No, certainly on issues of common importance, maritime, even maybe even climate change, disaster relief, and all that. In the economic sphere, we have inaugurated this strategic partnership at a time when our trade is reaching record levels, 3.3 billion. But compared to the Philippines' trade with other countries and India's own trade with other countries, this is a relatively very modest amount. And over the next couple of years, I believe our two governments will very consciously target higher trade levels for both countries. The same goes for investments. We see more Indian companies, including based on the MOU signed during the past visit. We see more of them looking into opportunities in the Philippines. The Philippines has greatly revised its incentive regimes to make it more attractive. But we also see Philippine players, Philippine enterprises now becoming more globally oriented. And India is a huge and promising market in itself, not just for consumer goods, but also for industries. And so we see Philippine companies also maybe becoming players by and by in India. Tourism also, no, both countries have relaxed visa requirements. So we see our people getting to know each other, getting to know the sites, appreciating tourism and destinations between both countries. We have direct flights coming. So, I mean, it's just the entire, we see a comprehensive, we foresee a comprehensive gain, across all sphere of the relationship because of the strategic partnerships. And there's a plan of action supporting this, with very specific goals. And we at the embassy, our two governments, certainly will push those forward very, very deliberately, very, very industriously.
Well, thank you so much, Ambassador, for all those details. That was Ambassador Josel Ignacio telling us that how India and Philippines partnership that has been elevated to the level of strategic partnership. The outlook will be not just in defense, but also in trade and several other sectors. For the gist, this is Nayanima Basu. Thank you for watching The Interaction.